the prophecy, what God had already written hundreds of years before. God said, you can look for the Messiah at this very particular time, and He's shown a spotlight into the future, and it lands right now when we're talking about. What we're reading about in the book of Luke is the intersection of prophecy and history, where they come together at this moment in time for this unique event, the coming of Jesus. And so let's look at, this is a prophecy, we find it in Daniel chapter 9, and that's what the little chart is about. Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 to 27. Okay, so flipping back to Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27. Before it ever happened, God said what was going to happen, and He even gave a time when it was going to happen. And so, verse 24, 70 weeks are decreed, or 77, 70 weeks are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Now remember, what we're reading is a prophecy of Daniel. And so Daniel, now he was in Babylon, and Jerusalem had been destroyed. The King Nebuchadnezzar had marched in, destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and Daniel was looking forward to when Jerusalem would be rebuilt. The temple would be rebuilt. And so a vision was given to him. 6th century, 5th and 6th century BC. A vision was given to him, and it says, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people. Verse 25. Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Your city will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. And so, here's a prophecy given to Daniel, and it says exactly when to look for the anointed one, the Messiah. It says the Messiah is going to come exactly 69 weeks after a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. That's what it says. So if you're looking for Jesus, when are you going to look? At that particular time. Look at 69 weeks after the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. That's where you can expect to find the anointed one. Okay, and then verse 26. After the 62 weeks, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. You know, that is such a profound and startling prophecy that's given, because it says, the one you've been looking for, your Messiah, the deliverer, He's going to come after these 69 weeks, and then He'll be put to death. I mean, a complete anticlimactic kind of a thing. I mean, the one you've been looking for is going to come, but then He's going to be put to death. Continuing on, the people and the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. And then, after that, your city will be destroyed again, and your sanctuary will be destroyed again. The end will come like a flood. War will continue to the end, and until desolation has been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with the many for 1 week. In the middle of the week, He will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And at the temple, He will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that His decree is poured out. And so we have a prophecy that's given, and it says, after a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, look 69 weeks into the future, and you will find the Messiah. Now, this is a prophecy. It's symbolic. And so when you're looking at a prophecy with symbols in it, how do you interpret days? A prophetic day is a literal year. And that's not something that's made up. God has used that before. In fact, if you flip over to the previous chapter, Ezekiel, you'll find Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6, where God is talking to the prophet Ezekiel. And he says, after you finish this, lie down again, this time on your right side, and bear the sins of the house of Judah. I have assigned you 40 days, a day for each year. So a day for year equivalence is something that the Lord has just used previously with his prophets. And so here we're talking 70 weeks. And so if you look on your worksheet, it says 6 and 62 weeks until the coming of the Messiah. How many literal years would that be? So how do you translate 7 plus 62 weeks into literal 69 weeks? 7 days a week, which is 483 days, and so it would be 483 literal years. So the prophecy is saying, if you want to see when the Messiah is coming, look 483 years after the issue of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. When was that decree given? And that's the thing that we'd like to look at next. Like I said, this is a little technical today, but it's important because what are we basing our faith on? We are basing our faith on words written in a book. But these are words that God gave to us, and he says you can trust these words, and one of the ways you can trust these words, you know you can trust these words, is because prophecy that he spoke beforehand have been accomplished exactly as he said they would be. So let's look at those decrees. There are 4 of them that we can find in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra and Nehemiah are the 2 books of history. They're right before the Psalms. They're the 2 books of history that talk about the restoration of Jerusalem after Daniel's time. And so Daniel was looking for Jerusalem to be restored, and Ezra and Nehemiah are where those are actually accomplished then in his future. So just a little bit before the book of Psalms, you find Ezra and Nehemiah. And let's look at, there are 4 decrees there. Ezra chapter 1 is the first one, verses 2 to 4. And it says, this is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he's appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. And so right away, what is the purpose of this decree? To build the temple. Okay? And so that's what this decree is about. This is to rebuild or to build. So the purpose is to rebuild the temple. Now, is that what the prophecy said? When the decree goes forward to rebuild the temple, look forward 483 years. It didn't say that. It said when the decree goes forth to rebuild Jerusalem. Okay, that's when we look forward. So this one is restricted to the temple. You can read through the whole chapter 1, and see how it's all restricted to rebuilding the temple and offering sacrifices in the temple. Okay, let's go to the next decree then, which is Ezra chapter 6 and verse 3. And as you read through Ezra and Nehemiah, what you find is